This is my Constitution's Declaration of Independence and Articles of Confederation notes video. And I guess this is my pre-antepenultimate video for the semester. Yes, so core idea is the government can never be absolute or immutable or be complete in any situation. That's the core idea. And it comes from multiple things. One is that the people are the people that elect the people who elect the presidents and choose the senators and everything's effectively in the end chosen by the people, and everyone's on a timed amount that they can be in their seat, and there's nothing to do with hereditary rights or anything like that. So people get to choose all the way who is in charge. And because they get to choose, that means that the government doesn't have absolute power in itself. Any power that the government has takes from the people. Therefore, the people always have more government than the people always have more power than the government. So, in this sense, the government is not absolute and that is further seen in the fact that it is neither complete nor immutable. It's not complete because, as Amendment I think 9 says, the Constitution is not to be twisted or misused to take people's rights away, even rights that aren't mentioned in the Constitution. So it's acknowledging that people have rights beyond that which were mentioned by the Constitution. And so government is not the kind of thing that is completely enumerated or laid out all the things that people actually have rights to. And it should not be assumed to be such. And that you can pervert a government when you think that it's completely labeled all of the rights. Because once they're all labeled, you can conceivably twist them, or if you miss one and you think haven't missed any, then that right will be eternally forgotten, basically. So it's not complete in that sense, and it's not immutable. The government is not immutable because at any moment we could decide to change the Constitution. We could change things that are in it, and we can add things to it. We could take things out of it. So the fact that the government is immutable is mutable and is incomplete in a sense shows further that it is not absolute, and it's not absolute in any circumstance, because at any moment we can do that. Actually, I'm not 100% sure if that's true. I think that's the goal of American democracy, or much as is possible, to make that so the government's never absolute. But I think because we're not like electing the president every single day, there might be a time when we don't want the current president, but we're not able to get rid of him because it's still his term to be president. But we can always impeach him, but that can be a process in itself, and such things like that. So there can be, I think, times when the government does have power over the people. And of course, the people being considered as a whole, not just groups of people, because of course criminals, for example, the government does have power over criminals, but the government does not have power over the entire people, because it cannot control it against its will. It can only guide it and, in some cases, manipulate it, but it cannot really control it. And this is against Hobbes big time. Um, Still allows for there to be enforcement, it allows for there to be superiors, but there's no one supreme superior, and the superior of the president and of the entire House of Senate, or House of Representatives, still, in a sense, is inferior to the people. Um, so when you make the people king, king that is served and guided, sometimes against his will, by those below him, uh, you get some of the benefits of Hobbes because it's kind of like the people are holding themselves accountable, but you also get the freedom of Locke and the room for prosperity and not just avoiding death that comes with Locke. So, I mean, I think it's a great system. I'm an American, obviously, so I have that bias, but yeah, I feel like it really does have a lot of the benefits of Hobbes and Locke together. Um, yeah. And to continue on to a synthesis, it's pretty obvious that the Declaration of Independence comes almost straight out of the mind of Locke, especially his Second Change of Government. The thing I want to say most about that, though, is that a rebellion becomes proper when the king actually fails to be king. The king no longer is king. The king's purpose, the king gets his power from protecting lives and the property of the people. And so Henry, during the American Rebellion, American Revolution, had not been protecting the property or the lives even of the colonists. So he was actually, insofar as he related to the colonists, not a king. And so you could say that a rebellion is actually never good. You should never rebel against a king, ever, ever, no matter what, according to Locke, according to America, according to everyone. The catch is, though, that you can rebel against a bad king, but a bad king isn't really a king, and if he isn't really a king, then it's not really a rebellion. And so, because of this, the American colonists were able to get out of Romans 13, were able to act morally, or at least convince themselves that they're acting morally. I wonder if this is true, given that Jesus says to Pilate, uh, "Your authority has been given you from heaven," and so kind of this idea, um, either of divine right, or even if it's just like, oh, you are protecting the people and their property, therefore you are king. But I don't know, was Pilate really protecting the people and their property? It seems like probably, but if he had failed to do that at any given moment, would Jesus have been like, "You're not really a man of authority. People could come up and take you out of the fancy house, and that wouldn't be evil at all. And in fact, they ought to do that. They have a duty to do that." I feel like Jesus preached more submission, and like Paul was really saying, like he was talking about like Nero and stuff, and Nero was far, far from the ideal of protecting property and life. Uh, it was kind of submission, kind of passivity. Um, I don't know if there's room for even a not rebellion against a not king. Uh, so I don't know if in the end the American Revolution was justified, but it is according to Locke. And he was what the hot stuff was made of at the time. And yeah, so it's interesting that the Declaration of Independence is very rhetorically based and drawing from these grand principles of philosophy and stuff. But whereas the Constitution is just kind of like, this is how we're going to do it. I don't need to convince anyone we're going to do it. We're just going to do it. And like the preamble, or like especially the preamble to the amendment says this is why we're going to do this, to prevent um, mistreating the people. But in the Constitution itself doesn't say why. It's just a description of how the reality of America is going to be. And I find that interesting. I think it is appropriate to a country's uh, foundational laws. So we look forward to session, and God bless America.